morning time, about 10 o'clock. Um, got my coffee, which I almost spilled. So I had my coffee a bit later today. Usually I have it often when I'm walking around the park, but I have been sort of trying to get out sooner than later sometimes, especially if I'm running a little bit late in the morning. Sometimes that extra little task can slow me down or be too much to delay with getting out. And I feel like it works for me just to kind of shower first thing and then get outside. And I feel like if any of those are delayed, then it becomes harder to do. So if the morning goes on, I haven't showered yet, then it becomes more difficult to shower, or if I haven't gone outside, sometimes that can build up and suddenly become more and more anxious to do. So yeah, just trying to figure out what works for me. I haven't been doing much exercise the last couple of days. Usually I try and fit that in before the shower, and sometimes it can be an after effect if I haven't slept well, or I've slept a lot worse than the usual mediocre sleep that I get. Then yeah, that can easily be more difficult to do. But I'm going to try, and at least tomorrow's intention, tomorrow morning, to do a bit of exercise in the morning. I'm grateful that I feel a bit more positive and lighter today. I had quite a low day yesterday, sort of another low mood, and sort of low mood weather front moved in, but it came kind of in the afternoon, I noticed, and it became very heavy, so I just did my best to ride it out, not try and think that it should be different and anything like that, but so there's a kind of a balance between not pushing away the feelings, but also not falling into them, where I lose my sense of self, and sometimes it's like going down a water slide into more misery, and you can't, there's no way to stop yourself. And so I was aware that there were some negative thoughts about my life and how things are, but it wasn't where I was free falling into the feelings. So I did my best to ride it out. I ended up watching a lot of ER yesterday on my other channel. I do sort of reactions to movies and TV shows. I've decided to kind of do more stuff on that. So starting with a few series that I've seen before. So I'm going to try and keep that up if I can, and not try and force things. It's just another avenue of productivity and focus for me. So just now in the park this morning, this is my usual bench and upload space. I uploaded a video I had recorded last year that I forgot about when I was reviewing a TV series called 1899, like a Netflix series I just completely forgot about. So I was going there to upload sort of some reactions to ER and things I did yesterday, and I came across that and I was like, oh, completely forgot about that stuff. But so I'm gradually sort of working with that channel. I started recently making like ASMR audios as well. Probably too embarrassed to to post a link to them. I may do, and I kind of wanted to do that for a long time. I think even before my spiritual podcast, it started off as ASMR, I think, and even before these vlogs, I remember this channel was originally supposed to be ASMR and like audios, and then for some reason I just wasn't connecting to it, or I needed this avenue as well, perhaps just to talk. So yeah, it's kind of come around in a roundabout way. and I'm trying not to be forceful with it, to have like lots of ambition, but just do what I enjoy and what I'm connected with. So creating sort of videos on like mental health and difficulties, using that sort of outlet, and of course if that's something that's not been heard of, feel free to look it up. But yeah, so grateful. I'm feeling light and positive today, and I can't remember if I mentioned this in my last vlog, but it's okay if I did. But I got super triggered on probably Friday, I think. Must have been Friday, when I started looking at volunteer roles, and then I moved on to part-time jobs as well, and it just ended up triggering me, especially the work stuff. And it's strange because in this moment I feel, perhaps with this light mood, I feel like I want to grow and move forward with things, whether like in my mind I've got this fantasy of this really cozy part-time role where everything's just comfortable and the people there are really nice and the work's not too stressful and it's enjoyable, and maybe it's with a smaller organization where there's growth there and a future, and in this positive mindset those kind of feelings come. And maybe on the Friday I had that as well, potentially, and then I just got ground down, and maybe reading a job description and immediately images and difficulty coming up in me of how can I handle that. And so maybe it was a positive step that I did look at that, and I feel like I want to do that again today, and with the mood I'm feeling in, I want to I want to not necessarily utilize, but there's a feeling of want to push forward with things in some way, but also in a mindful way as well, in a balanced way. So I'm not just doing it out of sort of fear where I've got this mood and I'm just trying to hold on to it and do everything I can, but think, okay, right now I feel strong enough to maybe look at some stuff like that. Just maybe I just need to get familiar of just looking right now, forget about applying, but just looking, and maybe more difficult emotions will come up from that, and just allowing myself to process it and then looking again. Perhaps I know there's a therapeutic sort of technique of exposure when you have fears and difficulties, like I think there's one famous clinical psychiatrist talks about, fear of lift in the elevator, on there, and sort of taking very baby steps of just getting over that sort of fear. And I find when I'm in a bit more of a challenging mood, it's unapproachable. I can't even go there, and it's almost triggering to think about trying to push forward with stuff. So it's really quite polarizing, like the mood I'm in now, where I feel a bit more clear and positive, and maybe there's some credit there of yesterday where, I did look at some more spiritual practice stuff after, in the midst of the low mood, and a little bit afterwards, and I watched something to soothe myself as well, to ride it out and try to be present while watching, not just sort of losing myself with the watching. Usually that comes with wanting lots of food and comfort and just trying myself in comfort. So I was aware of that as well. I was aware of that line a little bit of, I didn't want to sort of just completely lose myself in something and then become like unaware. And also just not hold any expectations about today, because I'm sure there's been times in the past where maybe I've had a bright morning, a bright start, and suddenly something may have just happened that's kind of changed things, and just be aware of the changeability of mood right now. And of course, the things I'm doing in the background, whether it's productivity, exercise, sleep hygiene, spirituality stuff, it's all there to help, create a more stable foundation so the moods don't fluctuate as much, or gradually things are, were healed in their own way. I've given them sort of nutrients in different ways. So intentions for today. So I've already gone out and gotten a couple of bits of ingredients to do some cooking today. I've got to wash some dishes that have been in the sink way too long. And so there's the ever-going sort of, my first vlog was about dishes, and it seems like it's going to be a running theme, I think. But hopefully after recording this and having this coffee, I can perhaps do that, and do some cooking. Perhaps I can do some cooking while watching some of the TV series that I'm doing with the reaction videos and reviews. So I can try and do two things at once, and then potentially looking at volunteer roles and part-time jobs. I know part of me, with my drive of doing these videos and other things, is maybe it's a fantasy to get a little bit of income from, or support from, this content, but I realised that may be like a marathon with like YouTube, and it's a very, very what's the best way to describe it? Yeah, it's very tricky to know how much of, when things, whatever success is happening online when you're doing stuff like this. So I think a lot of it is just focusing on just enjoying the content that's being created, and of course utilizing certain things if you can, but ultimately just it's a little bit of just letting it be what it is. I think with my scope of how much I can do additional to it, like social media and other bits to promote stuff, or create sort of clickbait titles and all of that, I don't think I can engage in that. So I'm aware that limits my exposure and limits how things work online and YouTube, where things that are really clickbaity or dramatical, or like having amazing thumbnails and things like that, I've kind of accepted that I don't have the energy and ability to do that. So things will be quite limited in that way, and maybe it's enough with just, which is the core reason I'm doing it, is just to help my focus to some productivity. Of course, if it helps somebody as well, that's a focus also, in like a secondary focus and an important one. So that's kind of all of my content really. It's just something that I enjoy to a certain degree, I'm connected with, and also in the background it somehow may help somebody else. So that's kind of and I think the reality of perhaps trying to move away from income support and making a better income, because even though there's a certain level of comfort where I can afford to get a certain amount of groceries and afford to pay some bills, but obviously it's very restricting at the same time. The amount I'm getting, it's obviously it's limiting me to where I can live. So this is, the longer I stay on there, that this is the only thing I can afford, kind of the space I'm in now. And yeah, it would be really nice to have like a bigger space where people can come and visit, and naturally having a bigger space, it's to be healthier for the mind as well, not to have something that's more closed in. So, and it can really quickly be overwhelming as well. Like right now I feel sort of centered, strong and positive, so it's okay to talk about it. But I find sometimes, like say for instance tomorrow my mood lowers and I remember what I've said here or the ideas I've had, and sometimes they can turn into like poison almost. So I've got to be very mindful that I want to be free to embrace positivity and talk about things, ideas and aspirations, but really be aware when the low mood comes that I just kind of have to protect myself with that, and be really real with myself to say right now it's not the time to think about anything else but just surviving, just getting through the day, thinking about your next meal, think about having a glass of water, thinking about having some comfort watching something, thinking about whether I can go outside for 5 minutes. And so it's really sort of, meeting myself where I am in every way. So whether, I'm feeling a bit positive today, a bit bright, or I'm feeling a bit in between about things, or I'm feeling very low. So whatever point I'm at, I feel that's really good to kind of affirm. There is one volunteer role that I have sort of saved. It's where you kind of spend a little bit of time with somebody who suffers from Alzheimer's or any other forms of dementia, and I think it's like an hour a week. And so I purposely, even though I was triggered by that, I that whole sort of previous experience of looking for stuff, I purposely left it there, saying, I'm feeling this way about it now that I can't do anything, but wait, just leave it there and let things calm down. So maybe today I might potentially apply for that role, and it's weird because in my mind it feels like, that's a waste of time, not in the sense of helping people, but in a sense of I need to get in there and do something more significant in terms of more hours or more closer to being independent. And like just doing an hour a week is a pessimistic side of me thinking, is that really a good stepping stone, a good thing to, because my mind obviously naturally wants to dive in there and sort of get it over with and already build up to a higher sort of stamina of things and build up whatever sort of muscles inside of me for enduring stuff and sensory sensitivity issues that I'll be dealing with as well. So it's kind of, maybe that's natural for that to happen, but maybe it's just a really good baby step just to perhaps settle in that, keep doing my YouTube stuff, productivity. Also in this positive mood there was a sense of maybe sort of going back to writing in a very light way, even if it's I go into the novel that I was working on before, but just perhaps go in there in a sense of, I'm not sure when I'm going to write again, but perhaps can I enjoy writing or working on this novel now? Is that possible? And obviously there's poetry there as well, or a short story, but there's a sense in me right now, maybe it's because of my whatever positive feelings, that I really want to just get things going, get some movement going in my life. And I'm also realizing after yesterday, where I stayed in a lot and watching ER, there's a certain sort of outline of depression of just what my life is right now, and I feel like it feels like I don't want to. It was very depressing, just looking at my sort of my life and my surroundings, and I tried to of course offset that with spiritual teachings, which was very necessary as well, because it's almost a surrendering to what's happening now. Okay, I'm in this moment, that this is all I can do, and so you're not making it worse for yourself. And I think of all of these ideas, I need to, what I'd like to do is just ensure that I'm still anchored in my sort of spiritual teachings and practices, because I think everything else is going to fluctuate. Like my mood and energy is going to fluctuate. My energy for ideas and pursuing what I've just mentioned is going to fluctuate. And so it's ensuring that things are, that don't, that sort of part of me or my awareness that doesn't have these fluctuations, in a sense. It may get covered up with a low mood or weather front moving in, like the sky getting covered up with dark clouds. But and I feel like that's and it's a very tricky balance to do, because my mind is so unbalanced and so vulnerable to being triggered. So and I think with the presence practice, being in the present moment, it really sort of helps. It really helps sort of soften that a little bit, knowing that, okay, in like 20 minutes time, my mood can completely tank, and I'm just, feeling embarrassed and ridiculous about what I talked about 20 minutes ago. Like I feel like I can't even make myself lunch now. I'm in such a low state. So just having that clarity with that, and being connected with it, so if whatever happens, that I still have some form of an anchor of safety and clarity, and lots of other words I could use for it, but so I'm going to hopefully apply for that volunteer role, and just see that as a positive, not to worry about I need to do lots of other things, and maybe expose myself to more volunteer jobs. I think it might be good for many reasons to just do that regularly if possible, or when I'm able to, for some exposure. And also volunteer and even part-time jobs, they change so much, and it just takes a small window of like a day where a job posting comes up that feels like accessible, or a volunteer role that comes up that feels accessible. It feels like, oh, maybe I can apply for that. And so just, so make sure I kind of catch those roles when they come up. And I think as soon as something comes triggering, maybe just to check in with myself to say, okay, give it another minute, and then drop it and go back into maybe doing something to regulate myself and to soothe myself before moving on for the day. So it's almost like thinking of like a really hot sauna, where you're thinking, okay, I'm just to give myself 2 minutes of difficulty in there, and then come back out, and then like go into a steam room or something gentle. So it's kind of consciously and purposefully sort of going into something that's difficult, and I feel like that's healthy in a sense of where the body and mind will pick up on that. Like, I've got to prepare now. I'm doing something that's going to maybe cause me some difficulty and challenges, and so I've got to prepare for that. And of course that takes a certain amount of energy and toll, so that can only happen when there is a slight amount of buffer there, or energy to do it. Like for instance now, there is that. So so okay, I've got some things there. I'm not going to write today. I was tempted to go to the library to write, but then I was thinking I've got the dishes to do. I do have some like vacuuming that I haven't done in a long time, so I feel like, hey, let's just focus on the basics first. And and I'm doing the YouTube stuff as well, like I'm recording now. I'm not sure if I'll record a podcast episode later. I might do, or a reaction video, probably a reaction video. I'm falling behind on the ER stuff. I've watched several episodes without doing any reviews about them yet, so so I didn't want to kind of just add extra stuff with the writing, although it was nice if, for instance, things were tidy here and were less things needed done. Maybe I would have gone to the library to write and then do the job stuff there potentially, but maybe I can have that as an idea for tomorrow. and something just popped up into my mind. It's really hard to see where we're at with things, because it feels like the last few vlogs, even things have been difficult. I feel like I've maybe gotten a bit stronger in myself. I can remember a lot of vlogs where I've just been speaking very slowly and very maybe that's still there as well. Like if I was to record yesterday, I probably wouldn't be as I am now. So but maybe not to be unfair on myself, perhaps I'm sure there has been a little bit of growth in my tools that I'm using, my kind of spiritual practices, and like to be mindful and to be aware of my moods and to catch it when it happens and not make things worse. So yeah, that's positive. Yeah, I think that's it for me today. So I'm going to wish myself luck, finish the rest of my coffee, and more importantly, just take one step at a time. Use my presence practice, one step at a time, and just see how this energy can be used. And yeah, that's it.